Manny's going to be talking about how propaganda is subverting your reality. It's time for the truth, according to Smooth Manny. Smooth Manny, what is it you're going to be talking about?
So everybody knows that you're slightly being brainwashed.
Yes.
Like
everybody knows? Come on.
That's one of the first things that I've agreed with as the premise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I disagree.
Shut up, Lisa.
Well, you're wrong.
Dumb.
So Gerald is wrong, and everybody is being brainwashed, and they know it.
Right.
But because the people like Gerald, they think that brainwashing is like CIA, MK Ultra, and it's like this.
Well, that's because
process.
you've said that.
Well, that is part of it.
Yeah, true.
But that's not all of it. The main thing is the subtle,
it tends to be
the subtle propaganda that is slowly taking over your reality. In order to understand how this propaganda works, we need to understand what is propaganda. Like, right. So,
yeah.
we need to. Our main character is the guy who literally created not propaganda, but who weaponized propaganda outside of a war element.
Okay.
And that is Edward Bernay.
Bernay's.
This
like
guy,
a little Edward
Bernay
on my
sauce?
steak.
Yeah, and I love this quote. Propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government. How could a person create this this new propaganda but weaponize it not in a time of war? He's Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Oh.
And he weaponized Freud's studies, and he's like, oh, we could totally use people's desires, subconscious desires, and just teach them how to want things that they don't need and use that to manipulate them.
Well, see, that would make me think that they were less effective because he's like, let's use people's desires. Like, oh, what are you thinking? Like, lust, you thinking greed? Everyone wants to have sex with their mothers.
It's so weird. Every day's Mother's
So what
Day.
we're going to do is tempt people with their own mothers.
It sounds ridiculous, but that is actually what he did. So one of his first clients was cigarette companies.
Yeah.
And they wanted women to be able to smoke so they could have 50% more
like
of a
Philip
consumer
Morris?
base. And they were like, okay, so, but at the time, women couldn't smoke. It wasn't socially acceptable for women to smoke.
So I do know that because I do know that they would say not stinky like cigars because at one point cigars were more popular and they were saying cigarettes are less. But now actually, if you ask most people, they'll prefer the smell of cigars than a cigarette. It's just that it's heavier, so lighter. So I do know those commercials.
But do you know how he did it or why he did it?
Sleeping with his mother.
Almost. Women want their own penises, and cigarettes are the women's like sign of having a penis. That's how he thought about
phallic
it.
extension.
Sorry.
But I have a clip there, Garrett, called cigarettes, and it sounds ridiculous, but he literally changed the social norm of women being able to smoke in public.
And he believed it's because they wanted penises.
That's what he did.
Okay.
I mean, it worked.
It worked.
That cigarettes were a symbol of the penis. Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes. They were to light up the cigarettes dramatically.
That's Kimmy Schmidt.
Bernay then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
He knew this would be an outcry, and he knew that all of the photographers would be there to capture this moment. The next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable with a single symbolic act.
Okay. For possibly the first time since you've been sitting in that chair, you have my attention.
So what's crazy is that it wasn't just a ridiculous thought. It was that he teamed up with the press. He didn't tell them, but he set up an event. He set up a protest, filmed the protest. It was basically he invented the flash mob, but he did it to create a social moment, and then he coined the term for it, and he branded it. That is branding.
Freedom
Torch. He invented advertising. That's what he did. But do you guys think America is a consumerist culture?
Very much.
Sure,
Yes.
Why?
Everybody's kind of looks at your branding. I mean, the brands are important. People wear giant brands. Just
They scare us into buying stuff, Manny.
Yeah.
Bro, Bernay's mother invented that.
Let's keep it PG.
Whoa.
He literally created consumerism.
Yeah.
The all-American breakfast being, what's the all-American breakfast?
Sausage, eggs, hash browns.
Edward Bernay. The main purpose of it was he wanted people to be so busy with what they were consuming and feeling good that they would be distracted. Because that way society could be really managed by the people in power.
Okay.
Fauci.
And well, sure, exactly. The people that don't have accountability.
Yes.
So here is
Democrats.
I hijacked your show, and this is a clip called "Consumerism."
In 1939, Edward Bernays created a vision of a future world in which the consumer was king, which was at the World's Fair in New York.
Top flight documentary.
And Bernays called it democracy.
And company after company presented itself as this sort of centerpiece of a society in which human desire and human want and human anxiety would all be responded to and would all be met purely through the free enterprise system.
But in reality, the World's Fair had been an elaborate piece of propaganda designed by Bernays
That's
for his
Whoopi
clients.
Goldberg's eyes.
Privately,
Right.
Bernays did not believe that true democracy could
is
ever
that, a
work.
freight train
And
smacking
Bernays
the cane?
believed that this meant it was too dangerous
Love her on
to
The
let
View.
the masses ever have control over their own lives.
Those platelets?
And consumerism was a way of giving people the illusion of control while allowing a responsible elite to continue managing society.
So if you have all your
Wow.
desires met, and
Yeah.
that's what you want. Hey, get this red car. You're gonna be super cool, bro. Hey, get this new dress. Get the new iPhone.
Right.
You'll buy my phone.
Get your Obama phone. The government. Hey, no, play it.
Romney, he sucks. Hey!
All right, whatever. You get to buy new shirts. That's not that bad. All right. What about when it actually comes to foreign relationships, like taking over a country for good reasons, but you're still, taking over a country.
For a good cause.
So this is my favorite clip because I actually agree with him here. But at the end of the day, he is still manipulating the masses and their perception of reality. This is Guatemala.
For decades, United Fruit had controlled the country through pliable dictators. It was known as a banana republic.
Banana.
But in 1950, a young officer, Colonel Arbenz, was elected president. He promised to remove United Fruit's control over the country.
So he was hired by a banana company to
understood
take over
he was
Guatemala.
trying to transform this and brilliantly did transform it into an issue of a communist threat.
I thought I smelled big chiquita.
Arbenz regime became increasingly communistic after its inauguration in
Big nana.
1951.
Big
Working
Joel.
with the United Fruit Company, the CIA trained and armed a rebel army. As planes flown by CIA pilots dropped bombs on Guatemala City, Edward Bernays, he was preparing the American population to see this as the liberation of Guatemala by freedom fighters for democracy.
The coup would happen when conditions in the public and the press allowed for a coup to happen, and he created those conditions.
Couldn't that
ultimately,
guy
he was
iron his
reshaping
polo if
reality,
he's gonna be on television?
reshaping public opinion in a way that's undemocratic and manipulative.
Well, what I love about it is that, A, I agree with him. You had to take over Guatemala, but it was hilarious. That it was because a banana company paid him to do so.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Okay, but look, it's Guatemala, so I don't
Mario
really care.
here?
I love how you just set me up perfectly.
I swear I didn't mean to.
Right. Hey, what do you care about Guatemala?
Oh, I don't
They don't even
care.
have Coke like Colombia. What do they have?
No, not bananas, evidently.
Gonorrhea.
Sure.
And
that the CIA
gonorrhea.
gave them.
Yes.
Ah,
So,
Whoopsie.
that's our bad.
how is propaganda?
Pepsi.
How does this affect you? I have an overlay. It's called propaganda. Do you guys know only 6 years ago the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so
right.
this is what happens when you go into Netflix.
Yeah. It's not really subliminal anymore.
It's not subliminal at all. That only exists because Bernays created the system to do that. And when you see it, you will normalize it, and it will create your reality. And then, fun fact, you know the CEO of Netflix?
Yeah.
It's Mark Randolph.
Yes.
That's not his full name. It's Mark Bernays Randolph.
Oh, wait.
Is it really?
What?
Yes, it is.
What? I'm going to have to ask.
Talk to me,
Is
Goose.
there any relation?
Of course.
What? No.
Yes, he was the co-founder of Netflix. Yeah, it's from the Bernays family.
Whoa.
So it's not that shocking.
Thank you for educating us and helping us with the propaganda of our youth. This has been The Truth According to Smooth Manny. Let's take, if there's one really good chat to end on, because I know we've gone late, and, Dave has a prostate the size of a grapefruit.
I do.
Okay,
The doctor says it's eventually going to take my soul.
All right, Sarah B.
It's gotta.
Sarah B wants to know, how do we show this hypocrisy to people who try to stay out of politics / the world events so they understand why they need to be aware?
Wait, how do we show this hypocrisy to people who stay out of? You know what? That's actually a good question. I will say this. You start with an entry point that is something that matters to them.
Yeah.
Because
Compelling.
politics affects everything. And it really bothers me. We've talked about this. Like a lot of Christians go, "Oh, Jesus wasn't political." Incorrect. So politics affects everything, and politics and I know a lot of these people, politicians are very different, right? Politicians often are not the best among us. But politics, certainly in the United States, is a reflection of your values. It's a manifestation of your values. And so when someone thinks, I'm not interested in politics, oh, okay. Does your kid go to school? No. Is your kid homeschooled? Either is your kid a part of the educational system, either at home, private? Okay, guess what? You're now involved in politics. Hey, do you pay taxes? And you're now involved in politics.
Yeah.
Hey, do you own a house? You're now involved in politics. Hey, do you think that it's wrong for you to be rounded up and arrested, or your neighbors rounded up and arrested for simply owning a fire? Oh, you care about politics. Do you believe that you shouldn't live in fear of being arrested? Oh, you care about politics. What you need to do is find out the entry point. And this happens a lot. You don't need to give them the Republican or Democrat spiel. You find something that touches somebody's life. And what a lot of people fail to understand is that your values define who you are, your principles define who you are, and those things define how you vote. And we've talked about this in the past. Look, today, you're not really sacrificing, rams or sheep, right? Yeah. But this was a way back then to physically manifest your faith, to effectively give something physically, something tangible, something that could be quantified. Give it away with no actual promise or expectation of something in return. You're doing it in faith. There are really only two ways to do that today. Tithing to your church, and then something that is permanent, that you stamp as a manifestation of what you believe, a dog in the fight, with no promise of something, is vote. That's what you can do. You can tithe to your church, it's where you spend your dollars, and you can vote. Those and actions are what define you, not what you say. And politics is a manifestation of action. And I know the irony is not lost on me that you take action and get active and vote, and then you have politicians who do nothing more than speak. However, it is a significant action on your part, and it affects every aspect of your life. So you don't need to give them a political speech. You don't need to stump. Find something that touches their lives, that you know matters to them, and somehow help them understand how that's affected by the world around them and who they vote for, where they spend their dollars. Because your actions define you, not this. I'm pointing to a mouth. You take your chats.
Okay, Julia. Hey, that's a great voice you got there. Julia has a question. Are character people impressions something you have to practice a lot before you're comfortable doing them? Is it difficult to get the voices right? Do you have a favorite impression?
I don't really know that I get them right.
You get pretty close on a lot of. Your Jack Black is spot on.
Jack Black's very good. Dane Cook's very good.
Christopher Walken.
I will say, with Dane Cook, the impression is you just have to take the words, put them in the back of your mouth. Ooh, put the words in your mouth.
That's it. Exactly.
So, and I don't mean to, sometimes I just do them because my dad, just put down the fucking mask, please. I can't look at him. I'm sorry, I can't look at him. He keeps staying in character, putting on the mask.
Do you want the mask?
It's different. When you're there and you're dressing up,
is this easier for you to look at?
When I'm just looking and you're dejected, I feel like you pinch for me because Dave Landau had to go to a funeral. When you put the mask on, it seems like you're enjoying it.
I wasn't wearing the mask.
The Sharon Stone.
I found something new about myself.
Yeah. Put your legs down, Darren. Jeez, what's the matter with you?
I don't want to show my tuck.
Yeah. No, but my dad, I always used to do voices as a kid. And a lot of times it's just sort of more of a character than a direct impression.
Yeah.
But I will say this, when I would actually have to work on impressions, ones that I hadn't done, if we were doing some like a sketch parody or something, like a Matthew McConaughey or a Daniel Day-Lewis was one that I had to do or Robin Williams was one that I'd never done until we did the Good Will Hunting parody. And that was, you know something, Will? I don't think you're silly. You're just some grown-up kid. That was this whole thing. Oh, hey, Will, let's talk about it. Hey, hey, Will. And it was just one of those things where I had to listen, almost like, I know this is going to sound silly. Remember Mission Impossible when they were putting on all the prosthetics, the voice stuff, and it says, say this phrase? So this is what I would do when it was an impression I would have to work on. I would try and pick one of the most iconic scenes of an actor, and I would just repeat the actual lines from that scene because I knew that I could get it down as an impression.
Yeah.
And then I would try and say some phrases that I knew included kind of all vowels and all of the sort of the plosives that you needed, because these are the things where you'll often sort of determine someone's twang. And then what I would do is I would just not look in the mirror and try and make myself make it their face.
Yeah.
So whether it's like Charles Bronson or whether it's like I've done Josh Hartnett, I would just think of the face, and then start doing, and then eventually kind of look in the mirror and get close enough. And there are some that are going to be out of your register. That's just true. There are just some that you won't be able to do.
Does making the face help the voice, or does it just kind of help you get into the character?
It kind of helps. Well, because when you're doing it, you want to include all of it as best you can. So it's not necessarily to help, and it doesn't necessarily hurt. Sometimes it's kind of tough. Like the Charles Bronson thing sometimes makes it harder to do the voice because of the way you have to stretch your neck, with the like.
Yeah, that was difficult for you that day because it was like
you satchel. Hey, you crazy puke.
But Sling Blade helps you with the voice, doesn't it?
Sling Blade helps you with the voice when you do when you kind of do the. I don't know. It's been a long time, but the thing with the thing with Sling Blade is you got to get them artistic eyes, which is not meant to be an insult, but what it is there's no depth of focus. And see, I'm not actually. A lot of people just go out and they go like this, and they go, huh? No, the key is look with the eyes. And this is something actually having worked with special needs people. It is something that's very common. It's a lack of ability to focus.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people wonder what it is about the eyes that are different. And what it is typically like, for example, you see me if I look at my dad, you can see a shift in focus in the eyes.
Right. Yeah.
And so with the Sling Blade thing, the hardest thing to get, and I notice people just go, look, I'm doing my chin and going, But what you have to do is kind of stop and see, it doesn't matter where I look. You don't really see any change in the way my eyes go, whether I'm looking at you at the camera or just looking right here at the microphone. It's all about the same distance for that. And you have to notice some things. Usually someone will have something unique, like their eyes. Or sometimes they'll have a way they pronounce their S's, like Caitlyn Jenner.
But I repeat myself.
Yeah, that's what I would say is first just listen to them by osmosis. Then just the easiest thing to do is just impersonate those exact lines and try and pick up on some subtleties. Then you can turn into characters. Like Dana Carvey, none of his impressions sound like the person. But it's close enough, but they're really funny.
Exactly, yeah. And I think you do a good job of like taking like tidbits and like throwing them in at the right time. Anytime you do Jack Black, he lights up. I literally, every time you do it, I look really quickly. He just like smiles as big as possible. And every time you say the word chat, I just imagine Christopher Walken saying it. Chat. You don't even always say it like him, but I just think it works.
I can never work him in and stand up, and then it's kind of the way I talk. If I'm talking with you in real life, if I'm talking about someone else or I usually just end up doing an impression voluntarily.
Yeah. But it feels very natural. It's not like you're just trying to do something. You're just talking, and then you go into it. Like Trump, a lot of times you start talking, and then you're like, excuse me, and you just like go into it.
There's a perfect example. If I were to do an accurate Trump, an accurate Trump is not as funny. Kind of like the Bernay is not as funny.
Oh, the Bernay one is hilarious.
Right? So we did the Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah.
But if you really, if you're not going cartoonish with Donald Trump, it's not really as severe as people when they're giving a speech, folks. That sounds more like actual, right? That sounds more like actual Donald Trump, but then you turn it up a little bit nasally and make it a little more cartoonish because it's more fun to do. You like it. That's how you change.
Yeah.
It has to start from accurate, and then you kind of tweak because you're trying to bring out certain personality.
It's hilarious though. Your Bernay, I don't even care that it doesn't sound the Godfrey Bernay.
No, but both impressions are good though.
They're very
the Bernay
good,
and the Godfrey, but they work together as one character.
They're very silly.
It's so funny.
No, you're very good.
I'm biased,
so much, but I think you're as good as anybody.
Much hate when I hosted the show. When Bernie Sanders hosted the show.
What they didn't see is like before. I don't know. We didn't show that tape like before. So you come in, you're like, you tell us, you're like, all right, I'm going to be in character the entire time. So like, don't do anything to take me out of character. Always address me as Bernie Sanders. And so you come in and you're kind of moping in, and we're having technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're like going through some stuff.
I don't remember. And then you started actually criticizing us as Bernie Sanders.
Really?
Not mean. You weren't mean. You're like, well, I thought you guys had your game together, and
I don't remember that at all.
Let me know when you guys
will say this
shit
though.
Together. And
Yes.
I will say this though. Speaking of like debates that happened this week, the Skylar Turden thing with the Devil's Advocate. I kind of developed two things, a little bit of a reputation. But first off, people, I would tell them, you're not going to be talking with me. It's going to be Skylar Turton. And then I would say, just so you know, and this is something too that I've always said, we have never, you booked the show, we have never lied to anybody as far as our point of view. I always say, let them know that I disagree with them.
Totally transparent.
Because I don't want to sandbag them, because I see it's just when people do it, right?
Of course, yeah.
So I always say, look, if we bring on someone, whether they're from Salon, from New York Times, we have to be honest about it. And I do the same thing with Devil's Advocate, whether it's Jordan Peterson, whether it's John Stossel, whether it's even people who are friends. I go, look, just so you know, this isn't going to be like one of those conservative webcam videos. Oh, why are liberals always like, hey, I'm patriotic, but they hate America? I said, I'm going to try and present the most convincing arguments that I can from the left.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, okay. But then afterwards, I won't say who, but there are 3 people who said, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And you kind of tripped me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it became harder to get conservatives to do it. So it's not actually
people that wouldn't be able to like play along. It's like, come on, you've been.
There's some of that too.
This is a character, and they're like, oh, I see what you're doing there. And it's like, no, you're not supposed to say it like that. You're supposed to be debating somebody who has a different opinion.
Yeah. There's the old, saying, preparation beats perspiration. That's kind of how I treat it. But it goes, I would say it's preparation beats perspiration. Then perspiration, I guess, beats sort of self-adulation. Like people who love to go out there and it's like, I'm the best, I'm great. No. Prepare, then work really hard and expect to get your ass kicked.
Yeah, work like somebody else out there can beat you.
Right, yeah. And so I would always do that with Devil's Advocate. It would usually take from the counter arguments for debates that we've done in the past or potential points that people might present and change my minds. And it tripped some people up sometimes.
Well,
Not everyone.
It helps you prepare too, because you're actually trying. It's kind of like if you want to really know a subject, make sure that you can teach it. Like have the ability to teach to somebody else, and you have to go through all the intricacies of it. If you have to make the argument yourself and hear a rebuttal, and then have something to say on top of that, you've really kind of dove deep.
And that's why I always teach kids that American history started in 1619.
Absolutely, it's a great project.
All right, let's take another chat. Let's take 2 more, and then we'll call this a day, because I'm sure that Pops Crowder's balls.
Oh yeah. Every time I catch a glimpse on the monitor, it's just I'm reminded. It's horrible.
Okay, Hope has a question for Gerald. What's a good organic wine to buy? I love wine, but refuse to buy California wines due to the pesticides used.
That's not really accurate, though. There's a lot of.
Isn't most of the organic wine thing?
It's a little bit of bullshit. It really is. Like, if anybody comes in and sells their wine to me as this is organic and this is all estate fruit, and that's the only, I'm like, yes, but your wine sucks. You have no one to blame but yourself. It's all your fruit. Right. You can't even point the finger at anybody else. That's a really bad argument.
But Gerald, the smelt!
I don't care. They can't
swim!
They're poor swimmers. I don't think. So. It's got to be like a boot camp for him. If you can't get past this point, you don't deserve to live.
Can you imagine trying to argue to the pioneers?
Like, you gotta stop fish! Take your nuts out!
They're slow.
There's fish who can't swim in there!
The Donner Party's like, I'm so hungry, though.
It's not fair. It's not fair.
Some guy is just like has a little tin of smelt. He's like, no! And then he smacks it and it goes back into the water. No! It can't swim!
You don't know where to keep
from his CPR and the smelt.
Get the paddles! Here!
That's insane.
I love it. It is a little bit of BS, though. Look, grapes are mostly organic in Napa Valley. If you're buying really crappy mass-produced wine, then they do use a lot of chemicals to kind of take care of that process and do stuff. And if you're buying nicer wines from Napa and Sonoma, other places around, there's tons of places in California on the West Coast that do a great job with this. But most of the time, farmers are smart. They try to do something sustainable, right? And sustainable tends to be more organic naturally. They're not out there for the most part trying to just pitch, oh, I'm organic, bro. They're like, actually, this makes a consistent product that people will buy year after year. And that's the market dictating the terms of the engagement there, not some politician saying you can't use a chemical. Okay, well, fine. Sometimes you have to use a small chemical.
No, you're exactly right.
To make sure that you don't lose an entire crop to an invasive species.
I did a segment a long time ago before I had started this. So this might have been in 2012, 2013, where I went to a goat farm. And just because I think I was maybe even working at Fox News, but I used to have to pay for my own stuff, and then they run it on air.
Well, yeah.
So it was a goat farm where I was trying to compare this actual like goat farm where these people, clearly like the goats were outside. You could see them roaming in the grass, but they weren't certified organic because they had to use some kind of I don't know if it's curing or a lacquer on their wooden fence post. To,
it's stupid.
And then this huge, clearly factory hog farm across the road was certified organic.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot too. There's one cigar that I believe was certified organic, and they had to lose the label from a company called Placencia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it doesn't have it anymore. And here's the thing: tobacco is really, generally speaking, an organic crop. Now, do they use some pesticides? Sure, but nicotine, caffeine, these are natural pesticides too.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, they would be certainly more organic or sustainable than what a lot of people would consider organic. That label doesn't really mean anything.
No.
And the best thing to do with food, and probably with wine, you correct me if I'm wrong, is know where it comes from. So if you can know the farm it comes from, you know.
There are plenty of great wines, and that's the reason I haven't named one, because I could name, there's like thousands of them that do this job really well and aren't super expensive either, right?
Yeah.
So just look it up real quick online.
Barefoot.
And see. Don't just, no. No.
You can pay for that organic
You can.
tag too. Like a friend of mine, his family owned an avocado farm. And I remember we were at a grocery store.
Tom
and no, not Tom Selleck,
Yeah.
not that, different friend. We were at a grocery store and he was like, "Don't ever buy organic avocados." And I was like, "Why not?" And he was like, "Dude, they just pay for that."
Yeah.
They pay for
you
that.
know what's,
Like,
you know what's crazy about avocados, right? So the hipster thing to do in California is, it's been this way for a while. It's to eat avocado this, avocado that, avocado toast.
Yeah.
You know what the worst consumer of water per piece of fruit or per pound of fruit is out
Avocado.
there? Avocados by
Yeah, I know.
a mile.
That's not a
Worth it.
joke. Tom
Not even
Selleck
all,
was
at all.
stealing water for his avocado farm.
Worth it.
Not worth it. These guys are out there like picketing because of the smelt fish, but then they're eating avocado toast
It's
over at
the good fat, Gerald.
I don't
Yeah.
care.
It's a superfood.
Yeah, where are we gonna get it? Where are we gonna get the omegas? The smelt? They can't swim.
Should make them easy to catch. They're poor swimmers.
My God.
Give them floaties.
Then I have to hear Greta Thunberg say that. Oh, hey, human beings are so cruel. Really?
Yeah.
If we were if we were the cruelest species on the planet, it seems we wouldn't have to be protecting the fish that can't swim from every other species who doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
All right.
Stop eating the smelt, you stupid bass.
Yeah, a seal's just like, what?
What? Huh? These guys are swimming slow. That's
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. There's smelt coming out of my ears. I don't know, but it'll make a good IMAX film. Whoa, whoa.
Gerald.
All right, final chat.
Okay, final chat comes from Aaron Blanton. Question: what was the biggest content-related challenge when the show was just beginning?
Ooh,
Is this back in the once a week days?
yeah, it depends on what you mean. The once
Never
a week
daily.
when we went daily, that was a big trend. Yeah,
That was
Hashtag never daily. Hashtag never daily. Well, okay, I will say this: when it was weekly, it was all the commercial breaks when it was on radio.
Yeah.
So you would have like, I think on
was a
AM
lot of
radio, I think it's like
commercials.
16 minutes of commercial breaks, and so in one show we would have like 12 Michael Jackson song parodies. We'd have like 12 Captain Planet sketches, 12 white privilege boys. We would have so many of these things, so that was really tough. What else was really tough was figuring out at that point, this was sort of pre everyone doing this. It was either you did audio podcasts or you did short videos, like figuring out how to get a switcher that worked, all that kind of stuff, building a set where you could see us. And also, since we had to go to radio terrestrially, making sure that we had a system that we could do that would go to radio but also not have lag and go online.
right. Yeah.
And I tell you what, this is the truth. When we initially started, I just said, like, okay, this is, I owned the rights to this podcast, and it was just going up on iTunes, and I was on radio. And it was syndicated to, more markets than a show that's, I think we were like in 12, maybe we were 16 markets.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really mean a whole lot to the AM radio thing. It's a lot of radio is a sham, just to be clear. Just because you're in that market, it doesn't mean that you have listeners in that market. Depends on the time and depends on the station in the market. So anyway, but I always maintained the rights, and so I plan to do it online. And at this point, there really were no video podcasts on YouTube.
Yeah.
Certainly not anything prominent. And so I said, well, we're going to run the first one to see what happens. And at this point, it was like a 3-hour show. And I was like, ooh, like, 12,000 plays. Oof, well, maybe this isn't something. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's just one of those things. I always plan to start MugClub. I was like, maybe this is just one of the things the super fans will pay for.
Yeah.
And we can give them this additional video content. But, uploaded it for a while. And then by the second month, it was like, oh, okay, 45,000, which is better than a lot of even podcasts on YouTube right now.
And you were doing the videos prior to this.
Yeah, short video.
Doing the shorter videos.
And then it was a few months and over 100,000.
Right.
And then, once you crack that 250,000 mark, then you have a bunch of sponsors that I say no to. And so I didn't know that it was going to work, because you have to remember at that time. So this is what I would say was most difficult. Let me give you a macro what's been most difficult in my life, okay? At that time, everyone said short. YouTube is short.
Yeah.
How are you going to compete with the turtle humping a work boot? How are you going to compete with the guy breaking his arm on a skateboard, right? They would say short, 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 short. That's what you have to do. And I remember even at Fox News trying to tell them how things sort of worked online. And I didn't believe that you had to be so short, because even my short videos would be 3, sometimes 7 minutes. And I was doing these packages. I said, look, if there's buy-in, people will stay with you.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure that you set it up at the beginning so they know what the context is. And when I was at Fox News, for example, they would remove my own appearances on Fox News on my YouTube channel. And I'd asked them beforehand.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we just don't want it because then why would people tune into Fox News? And at this point, I was like, look, it's 80,000 people. Most of these people are 20-years. They're not watching Goal On, Head On, Roll On, Headache Cream.
They're not buying gold either.
And Wilford Brimley's diabetes prick.
Yeah.
Stick, whatever it is, the thing.
The sticker.
So they would remove it. Yeah. And then the same thing when I would talk with radio people. They're going, well, we want you to do this. Radio is all local. Like, well, this is actually, some of this is kind of changing a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I even had people who would bring me in to work with other, I would say, sort of like clickbait conservative sites saying like, well, opinion doesn't do well. Original content doesn't do well. And I'd say, I think you're kind of lying, because I know what you don't understand is you're copying someone's original content. For example, Courtney had some columns that had been ripped off many, many times. So I constantly had to retrain people. Good example here, too. Ads. This is the first show that I know of, not only that has done commercials like we've done, but Tokunawa knows it, and Gerald knows, and my dad certainly knows this. We had sponsors early on drop out because they would say, we want you to do a live read before the beginning of the show. And I would say, well, first off, I don't do live reads. We do these clever commercials. And at least we'd like to think that we package them in a way that's more clever than just, hey, buy this, use a discount code for, dick medicine, whatever it is. That's a common thing.
And a topical cream.
And so remember, I used to have to tell them, I would say, look, we're going to put a commercial. We're going to keep it very limited. We only do one. I think the most we've ever done is 2 commercials in a single show. Sponsor placements, really.
Yeah.
So we're going to put it in the middle of the show because, first off, you put ads at the beginning of a show. People just skip. I know I do that. Skip 30 seconds, skip 30 seconds.
Yep.
And when we work it into the program as a sketch, as something where we actually put some work into it, we notice that people re-upload our sketches.
Yeah.
And they get a lot of plays. And we're going to do that with you as a sponsor. And they would say, no. Our market research tells us that we want live read first 30 seconds, and they wouldn't pay a dime for YouTube. Because again, podcast didn't exist on YouTube, remember? Mm-hmm. So they don't want to include it. Yeah. Why? Because it was automatic downloads. Well, how many automatic downloads do you have on your phone right now? Does that mean that you're listening to it? And are you listening to the first 1 minute? Well, guess what the standard is now? Now we have advertising agencies going to other shows saying, excluding, you can't put the ad in the first minute.
Yeah.
But I had to fight upstream all the time. And that's why we ended up going with sponsors directly, because a lot of the advertising firms just didn't understand it. I was like, look, I don't have time to. And you know what? Hopefully you guys let me know. You can chat with us. Hopefully we've made a better show for you. I've always said, not if it hurts the show. I don't want people to feel bogged down with 2.5 minutes of boring live reads. And I'm not going to.
Dave's Built Bar yesterday was fantastic, integrated into the show.
Right. And you know what? And I'm not going to lie about a product either, because some of the people are like, you need this, get big and strong. It's a joke. The truth is, you don't need protein bars, but some people out there need to fit in some extra protein if you're an athlete, and most of them suck. The only reason that I eat Built Bars is because they taste like candy bars. Otherwise, I wouldn't eat them. I just eat candy bars.
But think about how prophetic that was. Here we are almost 6 years later. You're doing white privilege, boys. And where are we today, right? It wasn't even a term.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a term, not the colloquialism that has become known as today. So I would say the biggest fight, first off, is obviously the big tech issue. That's always been the biggest fight. Right. It's always been the biggest fight, and it cost me a lot in legal fees. And then the second biggest fight, because it's not just people in the industry who are left, but also people in our own industries, people on the right who also can't be bothered to try and go where the puck is going to be as opposed to where the puck is. And it's been really exhausting to try and educate people. Nope. I'll just go through a list. Nope, videos don't have to be 30 seconds or less on YouTube.
Yeah.
Nope, podcasts are actually going to be a really big thing. Podcasts in video form are actually going to be a big thing. Nope, we don't want to put advertising at the beginning of the show. We want to integrate them with the live audience. Oh, and a recent one too, doing the show live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Doing the show live. How many people have said don't do the show live?
Mm-hmm.
How many professionals have said,
I said,
"Oh,
don't do
never
the show live. You can go watch an interview with David Letterman where he was talking about before he did his show at night. He had a morning show.
Yeah.
And he was asked about it. I think it was Charlie Rose. And he said, well, look, we were doing an hour and a half show live from 10 to 11:30. He said, it was suicide. No one could do it. That was what David Letterman said. He said doing it live was just crazy. And of course, we're doing it live now, not with the FCC, but people aching to hit the ban button. So that's the most recent one. People say, no, live doesn't work. Live doesn't work. Live doesn't work. And that's another thing, because the industry would say, well, if you do it live, then it goes to archive and you don't get a notification, right? So we used to do this a long time ago. We would stream it live, and then sometimes we'd have to delete it and re-upload it. And then we said, you know what? I think that people now, I remember having this conversation, I think that people now actually want that sort of live experience, because now everything is a la carte.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of coming full circle. And
It really is, yeah.
We let people know that we're live, and we prove, that's a big part of why we have CNN, so you can prove, nothing up my sleeve, that it's live. I think it'll mean something to people because they're experiencing it authentically alongside us in the morning. And everyone said, no way, you're taking your life in your hands, anything can go wrong live and it won't work, and people don't watch live anyway. Well, I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
One of the big things you did really well, that people didn't figure out, was the free stuff and how important the free content was.
Oh, well, yeah, that's
to make
true.
everything work. And free lunches, kid, and all that lecture you got at Fox. I don't know, is Fox Nation free? I think it is now, isn't it?
I don't know.
Maybe
But no,
it's
I think what you're saying is if people had their way, everything would be behind the paywall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they didn't want anything going on YouTube. They saw it as competition, and I was saying you have to see it as complementary. And these are just things that have been a really uphill struggle. That's what I would say. I'm proud of what our whole team has done, and that we at the very least, if nothing else, I think it's been pretty clear that we've been ahead of the 8 ball and at least had a vision as to what we want to do with this company. And right now, that's fighting back and being live and being authentic and making sure that we're honest, while hopefully not being removed. But
nothing to walk on but landmines.
Yeah, nothing to walk on. What were you about to say there, Gerald?
I was going to say something about the ad thing. Gosh, I was.
The ad thing.
Not the ad thing. Sorry, you said you were ahead of the game with the live thing, and people want something that they can actually just go and kind of be in and not have to select.
Yeah.
It's absolutely right. If you look at any of the online platforms right now, like HBO or Amazon, what you're starting to see is actually all of the videos, but also like a live section.
Right.
So you can just go on, HBO. If you've got a subscription, you can go down, oh, what's playing on HBO right now? And so many people are putting their interest in that because they don't want to go through. Like, how many times do you scroll through all these different movies? And you can choose any of them that you want.
Yeah,
you have
and you
like this
scroll,
embarrassment of movies to choose from, and you're like, no. But then you see live, you don't have to think about it. You just click it. It's on. You're good to go.
Think about it.
Not even like that, but you don't have to ponder it. I'll use different words, right? And you just click it. So you're right. Like you've been ahead in a lot of ways.
Well, you know what else too? I will say, a lot of people don't understand this. I keep hearing the door open, but it's not opening. Oh, that's your cufflink, Jack.
Buttons.
Okay.
It's because I have shorts.
I thought we were under attack. I was reaching for the Walther button. So, this actually is really the first show of this proportion. What I mean, a show that gets, and I talk about this, but I try to avoid this just in
Do you want me to say
public. No, it's millions of people, right? Millions of people on each show, full-length show, not clips, millions of people. That, when you think about it, actually is a full-scale production television show that is live. Yeah. So what you have is live radio, where it's just someone talking into a microphone, sure. And then shows like Trevor Noah, like Colbert, those shows aren't live at all. Tokunawa knows this. They're taped in the afternoon. This actually is live. Now, every now and then we have to pre-tape a guest or something like that because, you know what I mean? Or like, what was supposed to be a scheduled debate because people, need to be accommodated. But in general, this is a live show. And you also still have clips and you still have sketches and you have writing and preparation. They're really, Johnny Carson wasn't live, David Letterman wasn't live, Jay Leno wasn't live, and then you have a lot of these morning shows that aren't live, and then some of them are, but they're not doing what we do. The View isn't putting on a Built Bar sketch.
Yeah, no.
Jimmy Kimmel has live in the name, and it's taped at like 3 p.m.
Yeah. So. Well, but here's the thing about live. People don't realize this. Like when we switched over from, or went to kind of this live show at this length.
Yeah.
I would get out of here and just be like, exhausted because the entire time there is no cut. There is no like, hey, let's take that from the top again. Hey, let's I forgot the fact that I was about to quote. Can we go back and insert something? Right? There is none of that. You just have to be on.
And to give you an idea,
2 hours.
People are like, well, AM radio. Let me give you an example. Someone who's one of the best to have ever done it, Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh never had to go more than 20 minutes without at least a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you look at the radio hour.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
What are the radio breaks there? The short break is, I want to say 5 minutes, and we would have some 7-8 minute breaks on the hour. You know, and it was about 16 minutes of commercials in any given, and that's not just, it doesn't matter how big your audience is because local businesses have to run those commercials.
Yeah.
So I will tell you this, doing 2 hours like this is way more difficult than when I would do 3 hours on radio. It's far, far more content. If you're doing 3 hours on AM radio, you're actually doing about an hour 20.
Yeah.
With a lot of breaks.
But we love doing it because we had these conversations that were just so much fun. Me, you, and Dave, and your dad, and Quarter Black, everybody in this room. And we're like, how do you capture that kind of energy?
Yeah.
Right? How do you capture that kind of fun, kind of just sitting around listening to us talk? And sometimes you may be like, whatever, he's talking about sports. Oh, it's soccer. Who cares?
Right.
But then another time, a random joke comes up that if it was a program that was scheduled and pre-recorded, would probably never have come up.
No.
Right. This hilarious moment happens just naturally, and you love it.
It's a lot of fun, and also learning happens on air. I didn't know that much.
True.
Here's the thing. I knew about the smelt. I just knew that. I did not know that they
It's like
couldn't
a whole
swim.
segment.
They're poor swimmers, and we need to accommodate them.
A lot of these guys today, Stephen, doing radio, aren't they? Isn't their podcast just the same thing, really? Their audio,
is. It's radio.
Their audio podcast is the radio show.
Yeah.
Just packaged differently.
And look, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Of course, I'm just saying it's just not what we do, and so the amount of preparation is very different. And it's been. Look, it's been a lot of work to try and be ahead of the curve and to try and make sure that we can still have these conversations with you. And I will say, it's a pretty cool community. I honestly don't get to have as much touch with you as some of the other folks here because I just don't have as much time, and so I don't get to. So that's why reading.
We don't
the
get
comments
mobbed.
here.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah, I hate airports.
Hey, the costumes are great, but Quarter Black, this environment you created here is
Nice.
Thank you.
The studio's pretty good.
very nice.
It is tremendous in its hellscape-like resemblance to California. Well, that's been Cultural Appropriation Month. Again, stay tuned. Set your notifications on YouTube if you're on the Blaze here, too, because there will be a lot of long-form content going up here this month of July. But the show will not be live. We'll be back the first week of August with my new, not ticker, rib cage for my ticker.
New cage.
I'll see you. Hey, if you like this video, hit that notification bell up there or subscribe or share this, right? Isn't that right, Dave?
Smash that like button and share it.
What are you wearing there? That's nice.
Oh, this is, I found it in the trash.
Yeah, also known as
Your shirt.
Crowdershop.com, which is where you can go and support. And we keep the overstock in the trash.
It's for people who are little.
Yeah.
He says I haven't earned it yet because I ain't grown all the way.
By the way, if you find Hunter Biden's gun in there, just let it be.